Good evening and welcome to Raconteurs News. Firstly, I'd like to start out with a big apology to everyone who sat waiting for us in the chat room. We've had a few technical difficulties, but hopefully we've bettered that now. And many thanks to Tony Hurst for stepping in and saving the day. And it's at this that I always like to just remind everyone that we've got an awful lot of people doing a great deal of work behind the scenes that never really get credited for it. So I'd like to say a big thank you to Tony, to Nick, Jimmy, to Jack, to Luby Lou, all those that do work behind the scenes and don't really get recognised for it. So thank you all for all your great efforts and all the work you do to keep us on air. And I would like to say welcome back. You know, we've been away for a week. Jason and myself are hopefully a bit more bright-eyed and bushy-tailed than we were before the break. What do you reckon, Jason?
Yeah, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, absolutely. Now we've got ourselves on air. It's going to be, hopefully, it's going to be a great show. I'd like to say thank you. Who did the tunes beforehand?
It was Unique Lee.
Unique Lee, yeah, okay. Thanks to Unique Lee for doing the tunes beforehand as well. I noticed in the chat room that Tony said that he was dancing about. And I also had a message from Heath who said he's dancing to Lip Up Fatty, I think it was. He said, I'm dancing to Lip Up Fatty. He really enjoys tunes beforehand, Heath. I think that's the only reason he listens. But yeah, thanks, Unique Lee.
Oh, fair comment, mate, yeah. Yes, so we've got some great guests lined up. I just happened to have a chance conversation with Max Egan yesterday, and it let me into a few things that quite blew my mind. And he said to me, Andy, this is not for general consumption. I need you to keep this under your hat. So, yeah, okay. And then about 20 to midnight last night, I got a message saying, shit, I want to put this out. It was a great conversation. I'll check out with the other person who was mentioned on there and put it out if it's okay by you. So there might be a little sneak preview of what we're going to talk about with Max next Tuesday when he joins us on his Crow House YouTube channel anytime soon. So keep an eye out for that. In the meantime, we're joined by a guest tonight who has been on with me before. I think Jason was on a couple of the interviews we did back then with Enemy Within, but he's not been on Raconteurs News. So we'd like to give a big, warm Raconteurs News welcome to Bernie Gadd. Good evening, Bernie.
Hello, Andy. How are you?
Evening, Bernie.
Hey, and Jason, sorry.
Yeah, we're good, mate, thanks. And for those who didn't hear your previous interviews, can you just go with a little recap on what your story is and why you're speaking out and campaigning, please, Bernie?
Good start, I suppose. I researched child sexual abuse. I've been doing it now for a few years. I've uncovered a hell of a lot of stuff regarding institutional abuse, VIP rings, lots and lots of stuff.
Sorry, Bernie. You were a child abuse survivor yourself, weren't you? But you didn't suffer the horrendous. Well, you did suffer horrendous abuse, but it wasn't elongated, was it? It wasn't over a long period of time. It was just one or two incidents.
It did feel like it, Jason. I've got to say, mate.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I've sat there with you, and listened to your story and interviewed you a couple of times. And I know that I'm not trying to make light of what happened to you. What I'm trying to say is that it wasn't over a long period of time, was it? It was, it was a nasty incident.
In fairness, what you're saying, Jason, is absolutely correct. I mean, there's some people that have had to go through this kind of abuse for years and years on a daily basis in some cases. Mine, as horrific as it was very short in comparison, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the point I was trying to make. I wasn't sort of demeaning what had happened to you or making light of it or anything like that. So you suffered abuse, and was it something that throughout your life, when you were growing up, throughout that, did you think to yourself, I'm gonna try and do something about this, or was there a particular time when you just thought, right, this is I need to do something about this?
Yeah, yeah. It was when my daughter was being groomed by somebody online, and I took things into my own hands. Not going into too much detail, but it all got sorted out. And since then, because obviously I hadn't since 1972, I hadn't actually had anything to do with abuse or child abuse or anything. I was kept pretty well protected after all that. But more recently, when my daughter was getting groomed, and thankfully nothing actually happened to her. We got to it and sorted it before anything actually happened. But since then, I've literally made it my life, if you like, to out it.
Yeah, and you've been doing a lot of fine work, haven't you, over the last couple of years, and getting involved with different groups.
I certainly would like to think so. I would like to think I've been doing a good job.
Well, yeah, I don't want to blow smoke up your ass, because that's not what we do. But it's I've seen what you've been doing, and there's a lot of good people out there trying to bring to the public's attention this child sex abuse scandal that it's ongoing and has been going on for time immemorial, it would seem.
Well, that's it. You're absolutely right on that. It has been going on since time immemorial, and the problem is, it's people can't. I don't want to sound condescending to any listeners. You know what I mean? But I know there's a lot of people out there that can't get their head around how big it actually is, and it is absolutely huge. I mean, they don't do national inquiries into child abuse. And unless there's a lot of people wanting it to happen, bit like Brexit, we'd never have got a referendum in that if there weren't enough people wanting it, would we?
No.
And it's exactly the same with the child abuse inquiry. The Goddard Inquiry, as it's more commonly called.
Not anymore. Surely she's resigned, hasn't she?
Well said.
Andy, I think Andy were coming in with something there. What were you going to say, Andy?
Yes, I was just going to say about the Goddard Inquiry, because that's something that's in a lot of people's minds, and it's made more people realise what is going on than previously. But things have all got a bit derailed there in the last week when Justice Goddard has resigned from the inquiry. So I'd like to ask you, Bernie, what's your particular take on what happened there?
My take on it. Right. Well, let's just say, right, to start with, right, I've always been cynical of the Goddard Inquiry. Well, even before Goddard, no, I stayed pretty quiet about it. Now, the reason for that is because, unlike many people who have actually embraced it, I'm very weary, and I have been from the start. Well, let me explain. Let me explain to you why. Right now, Theresa May called the inquiry. Excuse me. At the very height of the allegations into the Britton Smith, Savile and Janner cover-ups for years, and she had no choice but, well, she did, I suppose, but she went ahead and she did something. She set up the inquiry. Let's get facts, right. It was set up in July 2014, primarily to investigate and examine how institutions handled their duty of care to protect children from child sexual abuse, as we know. Now, it was down to the years of abuse by Jimmy Savile that got the whole ball rolling, which is great that they were taking it all seriously, or were they? Now, Butler Sloss and Fiona Wolf, they both resigned before a ball had even been bowled. And their reason for doing this, quite simply, was their relationships to some of the names that are and were being put forward, suspects of child sexual abuse. So looking closer, Britain was the Home Secretary and a permanent Queen's Counsel. So no matter who chairs it, there's always going to be conflict because he was the Home Secretary and he's also a legal man, you know. So anybody that's going to chair an inquiry is going to have some knowledge, if not a relationship with him. Am I right or wrong? I don't know. Maybe maybe I'm just being conspiracy theorist again. Been called that a lot. Right.
Yeah, don't we all?
Right. There never has been any acceptance of abuse at some of the venues which have become now famous, the likes of Dolphin Square, Elm Guest House, King Cora, and Halt de la Gren. In fact, you can exclude the last two from even being part of the inquiry, because that was one of the first things that Theresa May said, that they were not to be used. Now, those two are very, very important. You know, Halt de la Gren and King Cora, the names that pop up there, Savile, Edward Heath, etc. You know what I mean? They, you know, these places, they could have brought the government down, and they still probably could. They might come back and bite their arse yet, you know. Just because they've not been included in the inquiry, what it's actually done is made people talk more and more about them. And you know, if you go on my page, you'll see a lot of people commenting about King Cora, especially King Cora, because you know we're talking about Sinn Féin, we're talking about Edward Heath, we're talking about Savile, we're talking about Lord Mountbatten. There's a lot of institutions involved there, and that's without bringing in MI5 and the Secret Services. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So here's my question, right? Why would she, the now Prime Minister, interfere as to what can and can't be investigated?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. It's like they're closing the parameters down, aren't they? Weren't they saying that they were only going to investigate certain information and exclude other information as well?
Yeah, because at the time she was the Home Secretary, right? I've got no doubt in my mind back then she knew that she was going to be the leader of the Conservative Party at some point. Yeah. I think Brexit was a suicide jump by Cameron. He couldn't win whether we entered Europe or didn't. He couldn't win that one. He was going to lose. It was a lose-lose situation. And the only person that was ever going to take over from him, the only one with any serious credentials, was going to be Theresa May.
Uh-huh.
You know, so she's called this inquiry before she's become Prime Minister. Now she's not going to get any. She's not going to get any blame from it, is she?
No, of
because
course
it's
not.
An open inquiry. It's an open inquiry. No one's going to blame her. They're going to say, well, you know, there either is or there isn't. Now, regardless of how the inquiry does end up, people are still not going to believe that this kind of stuff is going on in the world. They're not going to believe it. It's called apathy.
Yeah. Well, right. Something I noticed, Bernie, just before Goddard resigned, I hope I'm not misremembering here, but I'm sure I saw something saying that she'd announced that she was going to broaden the scope of the inquiry. Didn't she actually say she was going to look at King Cora?
What she says and what she does is two different things. Now, I know that there hasn't been a word of testimony yet. It's been going on for over a year now, and there has not been one word of testimony. Yeah. You know, they've picked who's on the survivors panel. You know, and I'm not putting any of them down. You know what I mean? They're survivors, and I'm the last person in the world that you'll ever hear say anything bad about a survivor. You know what I'm saying? But they have been handpicked. You know, I don't see the likes of Mickey Summers on it.
No.
No, you know. Put Mickey Summers near a microphone and all hell's going to break loose. But anyway, forgetting about that, right? There was a two-part question, what I was saying then, about her interfering. Now, the second part of it is, right, is it because the former Prime Minister, Edward Heath, appears to show up at both of these venues? Now, it's not only him, it's also Lord Mountbatten, as I said earlier on, and everyone's friend Jimmy Savile.
But don't you think they might? I mean, Edward Heath is dead. Why do you think they don't just toss him to the wolves, as it were?
I don't think they can, to be honest with you, because if right, they did that with Jimmy Savile, right? And nobody has taken it seriously. No, apart from the likes of hardcore activists, there's still people out there that swear blind that Jimmy Savile couldn't have done a thing like that, and they won't accept it. And it's the same with Edward Heath. Old school Tories, they're having none of it, and they won't have any of it now. Now, Edward Heath was not arrested. He was never charged. He was never convicted. As far as I'm aware, while he was alive, he was never even investigated. But there is circumstances that a lot of people probably don't know about. Now, one of them was on at Hort de la Grenne. He went over on Morning Cloud. Now, Jimmy Savile was there as well, and witnesses actually described 11 children boarding Heath's yacht, Morning Cloud, but only 10 got off. Now, they were from children's home. They were taken from Hort de la Grenne to Morning Cloud. 11 children counted going on, but only 10 got off. Now,
that's the one on Jersey, isn't it?
That is the one in Jersey, yeah.
And that's the one that Jimmy Savile said that he'd never visited, and yet there's a photo of him with all the kids outside.
There's lots and lots of information about it. It's like people in the Isle of Man. He said he never went to the Isle of Man, but he did.
Why anybody would want to is another matter, but
it's a lovely place.
Obviously in his case it was extracurricular activities. So do you think Edward Heath is being protected because he was such an important Prime Minister in terms of getting into the European Union and
without a doubt. Now, I've always had a theory about the European Union as well, because once they opened up the borders into Europe, what they actually made possible was to be able to walk from the Soviet Union, if you could physically do it. Obviously, you could walk from the Soviet Union to Calais without even being molested. Mm-hmm. So you think deep about that. What that opens up? That opens up child trafficking all across Europe.
Mm-hmm. We've got a question from the chat room, and it's about Heath. And the question is: has Bernie seen any evidence to prove the rumor that Heath was blackmailed to take us into Europe? And by the way, that person is not attributing the rumor to you, Bernie. Just saying,
that's fine.
Is there any actual evidence out there that he did it rather than just rumor?
Well, at the end of the day, it was exactly the same as the referendum to come out of Europe. So no, there isn't. But what I will say is that at the time we went into Europe, I was 12 years old. So my memories of the actual deed aren't great, as you can imagine. You know what I mean? But there is proof that, they're the witnesses that saw those 11 children, and we're talking about people that worked at Hort de la Grenne, mm-hmm. and they were silenced.
Well, isn't there also testimony from individuals that work within the security services that have said that he was actually the security services were aware of what he was doing and
very aware of what he was doing. He was there's even witness testimony about him going to King Cora. Why does the Prime Minister? I've never heard of it. Why would a Prime Minister even want to be going to a place that's renowned for its abuse? It's not just something that's recently come out. King Cora's been around for a long time. There's another one as well. I mean, King Cora was the one that there was two of them in Belfast. One was a Catholic home, and the other one was a Protestant home. So you've got both sides of the coin there. Sorry, I'm just getting a bit confused here. Now, Sinn Féin were involved in the exploitation of children in both Kincora and the other. I don't know which one was which, whether which was the UDA and one was Sinn Féin. Now both of them were involved in the exploitation of children. Now there is a rumor as well, and I'm sure I've mentioned it to you before, that MI5 were actually responsible for getting the IRA to blow up Lord Mountbatten's ship.
Mm-hmm. Well, it does appear that what's coming to light now is that the IRA, the MI5 were heavily involved in IRA. It was heavily infiltrated, and a lot of the decisions that were taken there,
of course,
various acts were, if not perpetrated by, certainly supported by the security services, and they were well aware of what was going on.
Oh, more than aware. You know, I mean, like I say, I've said it many times. You know what I mean? Just I don't care about people's religion, and I don't care about people's politics. If they're a paedophile, they're a paedophile. You know what I'm saying? And they still have them same urges, regardless of what religion they are or what political persuasion they are. You know what I'm saying? And the same goes with these organisations. Now, somebody within Sinn Féin has obviously, in my opinion, been sussed out as being a paedophile, and it's been blackmailed, because that's how MI5 work. They feed these people with what they want, and then as soon as they've took the bait, they've got them hook, line, and sinker.
Mm-hmm. I just noticed in the chat room there, Lee's connecting a few more dots for us, and he's talking about the Shami Chakrabarti, the Director of Liberty, formerly the National Council for Civil Liberties since 2003.
Yeah, Henry Hodges' organisation, yeah.
And how they supported PI, the Paedophile Information Exchange.
They did support, and they supported them fully. I mean, they embraced them into the National Council of Civil Liberties. You know, there's loads and loads of stuff that you can even. They don't even hide the fact. You know, you got Harriet Harman, Patricia Hewitt, Jack Dromey. I mean.
Yeah,
all of them were involved in bringing PI into the National Council of Civil Liberties. You know, and why? For what reason? You know, they wanted to bring the age of consent down to 6 years old, or was it 4 years old? I think 6 or 4. I can't remember at the precise second. You know what I mean? But that's what they were trying to do. I'm not saying.
The other thing they have in common, Bernie, as well, is that at the moment they are all politically big hitters. Now, so it's not caused them any harm being associated with this with the paedophile information exchange, even though I've seen it in mainstream newspapers where they've been linked, but still they're still politically big hitters, aren't they? Now, so yeah.
And they always are going to be. They're not going to be. Right, look, we've done this before, and I explained to you, people don't believe, and this is what it's all about, Jason, right? It's all about people's apathy, right? People don't, it's not even the fact that they don't believe, they choose not to believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Yeah, and also the minds are so messed up because we've got all these so-called reality shows on TV that are entertainment. So people can't differentiate. The lines are being blurred between what is entertainment and what is actual facts.
That's exactly what TV does, though. It takes reality away from what's really going on in the world. You know, there was an attack at a Pakistani hospital the other day. I don't know if you heard about it. It didn't get much of a news thing, you know. But there's a little Palestinian boy getting searched in Israel, you know. He got stopped for throwing a stone, and everyone's all over it, you know. But this hospital in Pakistan, lots of people were killed, and it hardly even got a mention. Why would that be?
Yeah, well, it's because it's not what we're supposed to supposed to see and understand, is it?
Of course it isn't. We're not meant to give a toss. So they put all these programs. When Big Brother's on, for instance, right? Like you're on about reality TV, but when Big Brother's on, lots of people, you can't contact them. They sign off their Facebooks or whatever, and they go and watch the Big Brother, and stuff happens, and they don't even see it. It's a 24-hour thing. There's so much going on in this world at the moment. I was talking about this the other day when someone had put up about we're so close to World War III. Well, I tell you what it is, mate. I think we're at war now. I think World War III's already started. I think it started without us.
Here's an interesting thing from the captain. The captain says the only time MI5 and security teams step in on the likes of, I'm going to call him Ted because my mate Heath texted me and said, can you just start calling him Ted? It steps in on the likes of Ted is to warn them when they're sailing too close to the edge to protect them. So I think what the captain's saying there is that they're not blackmailed by these people. The MI5 just step in and warn them when they think they're perhaps sailing a bit too close to the edge. What do you say about that?
Absolutely agree with him, to be honest with you. I think, like I said to you before, I think MI5 throw the bait out there, someone will take it, and then instead of eating their fish, they keep it in a tank, you know what I mean? And they groom it, they nurture it, and they look after it. And then when it comes to a really, really serious vote in the House of Commons that MI5 would like to see winning, then they call in their chips, if you like. You know what I mean? They cash in their chips, then, don't they? There's a lot of That's what politics is all about, blackmail.
Yeah.
I honestly, and I said this at the time, and I'm not going to take it back. Just I'm sorry that she was killed, but that young MP, that young Tory MP that was murdered the week before Brexit. I honestly believe that was done to take people's minds off of Brexit.
It's theatre, Bernie.
Absolutely theatre, and people enjoy it.
Yeah. Also, if you look at that and you compare that to the incident that happened with the Swedish MP when there was a referendum looming in Sweden, there's a lot of similarities between the two events. Coincidence?
It's almost been traced, mate. I don't know about similarities. It was almost traced.
Yeah.
But the similarities didn't really. The similarities were such that even the vote went against the people that it. Because I'm getting confused now. It was a Euro referendum in Sweden, and they were voting to whether to go into the Euro currency, or to stick with their own currency. And she was pro going into the Euro. And I think that they thought they were behind in the polls, so she was murdered, but still it didn't have an effect on the poll itself.
Yeah, but my memory of that, and it is vague, but I do remember it. And my memory of that was that she was a really, really nice person. You know what I'm saying? As MPs go, she was a really lovely woman. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, she was. That's what they chose.
And in my opinion,
if
you assassinate a nice person, you're going to get a public outcry. And people are going to turn, but they didn't, and they didn't in Brexit either.
Yeah, I mean, let's be fair. I mean, no one's murder is something we should be rejoicing about.
No.
I can imagine if it were, for example, Theresa May, David Cameron, maybe even Boris, there would be some people, rather than getting upset about it, they'd actually be having a street party.
Yeah, well, like you've hit on a good point about not celebrating people's deaths, but there's only one. There has been one, hasn't there? Margaret Thatcher. I think the whole country was celebrating that one.
Yes, hooray, the witch is dead, I think was playing an awful lot when that happens.
As you say though, generally speaking, when somebody dies, I think the next one would probably be one of the now Tories, one of the ones of recent months and years. You know what I mean? I can't see anyone historically that's going to die now that everyone's going to be triumphant over. But so you're absolutely right. People don't, as a general rule, cheer when somebody dies. But I'm starting to notice that's especially with people in the the CSA groups. They're not looking for justice anymore. They're looking for revenge.
Mm.
And that tells a story, because I think a lot of CSA survivors don't even believe for 1 second that they're going to get any justice. I don't think they do. I certainly don't think so.
Yeah.
And I think and I do believe that this inquiry is just a big smokescreen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, sorry. Go on, Andy.
No, you go ahead, Jason.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, getting back to the inquiry, now it's in a bit of a mess at the moment, isn't it? I mean, it's got no leader. It's a little bit like the country. No real leader. It's got nobody to take it forward. Do you think that this is just delaying tactics on the part of the people that want to cover this stuff up?
Well,
Or do you think there's actual reasons, perhaps this, what was her name, Wolf? This one.
Yeah, Fiona Wolf.
Goddard, yes, sorry, Goddard, has been perhaps making the wrong sort of noises, and they've decided to push her before she starts really investigating.
I actually think both of them two knew this was a non-starter, and they didn't want to associate themselves with it. Once they realised the complexity of it all and how it was going to fan out, they didn't want to be part of it. I don't think they wanted anything to do with it. I hear people going on about who they want to see chair the inquiry. Hear things like Michael Mansfield, and I'm as much as he is a great Queen's Counsel, and he's done a lot of good stuff, especially with the Hillsborough people. But let's not forget, we're talking about a man that got arrested for domestic violence. We're talking about a man who defended Barry George, and we're going to go into that one. That's a big one again, to do with the Dando case. He represented at appeal the Birmingham pub bombers. There's going to be a lot of people that are not going to want him to be chairing an inquiry like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know where I'm coming from?
That's understandable, Bernie. Yeah, we've got quite a busy chat room tonight, and we've just got a question in from a new face in the chat room who we've not seen before, Mrs. Banks. Thanks for joining us. And the question there is, I know it's one that you've touched on previous visits with us, Bullock Forsyth. Where continued investigation for his daughter? So many more just start with promises and then nothing.
Right. The problem with this one, right, is that I'll quickly outline it if we've got time. Bullock Forsyth worked at Lambeth. Yeah. Now, he was one of the housing officers. Now, he knew about the abuse that was going on at Lambeth Town Hall. And I'm going as far as, I'm going to get shot down in flames in the chat room. I know I am, right? But there was actually a torture chamber underneath the town hall. There was chains, leg irons and all sorts. Now, he knew what was going on. He knew what was involved, and he let it slip to one of his colleagues. Yeah, he went home one night, took some files home with him. 2 days later, his head was smashed in and his house was burnt to the ground. Yeah, they did a crime watch thing, and there was this fella who was outside. He saw these cars before. This is before anything happened to Bullock. This car pulled up, and these guys in suits came out and went into his house. They came out with boxes of what looked like files. It was boxes, yeah. And as I say, they found him. His head was smashed in and his flat was burnt down. Pretty much straight away after he'd already said that he knew about the abuse that was going on within Lambeth Council. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, his daughter has been trying to get justice for him, 20 years now, is it? It's got to be 20, getting on for 20 years. Nothing. No one even knows who Bullock Forsyth is. The only time I ever hear Bullock Forsyth's name is if it comes out of my mouth.
Absolutely, Bernie. I'd never heard the name before. You mentioned him in a previous interview with him, and I don't think it's ever cropped up since. So, I suppose the long and the short answer of that question is it appears that there is no continued investigation.
No, there isn't. There isn't, right? Another name that pops up is Clive Driscoll. Now, Clive Driscoll, he was a copper that was involved in Lambeth, right? Now, he knows what went on in Lambeth, right? Now, he took his findings to his chief, whoever the head of the police was in Lambeth. I don't know who it was, right? But he took his findings to him, and he wanted, and I'm going to name names here, Andy, you know what I mean? I don't care, right? He wanted to interview Lord Boateng.
Okay.
Now, he was told he could not interview Lord Boateng, and he was taken off the case. He was taken off the whole operation, in fact, and he was moved to a different area, and someone else took over, and that's where it ended.
Right.
Now, you ask yourself, why did he want to interview Lord Boateng? I'll tell you why. Lord Boateng was a regular visitor to Angel Road Children's Home in Lambeth. He was a friend of Michael John Carroll, a convicted paedophile who was the head of Angel Road Children's Home. I've told you this one before, but I know there'll be new people that haven't heard this before. Now, he swears blind he did not know who he was, but Carroll was not sacked for being a paedophile, by the way. He was sacked for financial irregularities. Now, he applied. Remember, this guy's a convicted paedophile. He applied to adopt 2 children. Yeah. Now, he didn't do it through his own local authority. He went to a different authority. He tried it with Croydon and he tried it with Southwark. Now, on both occasions, they do checks, obviously, and they told him, no, ain't happening, mate. You ain't got a hope in hell. And on the second occasion with Lambeth, a very high-ranking political figure rang through to Southwark and told them to change their mind, and they obviously refused to do it. Now, I know it was Boateng. I know it was, and if you look into it, there's lots and lots of evidence to suggest it was him. But he wasn't the only one about at the time, you know. In Lambeth, you've got Jack Straw, you've got Tony Blair, all of them facilitators of paedophiles, all of them.
Okay, you're suggesting this, aren't you? Really?
I'm suggesting it. Yes, Jason.
You're suggesting that this might be what the link is.
What I truly believe.
Well, if that's what you believe, Bernie, that's your truth. Then that's what you have to speak.
Well, I think,
like I say, I didn't. When you were talking earlier on about the Forsyth guy, I was going to say I've never heard of him either. In fact, when I saw it written in the chat room, I thought it said Bruce Forsyth. So perhaps I need some new glasses.
Yeah, I think you do need some new specs. Yeah, should have gone to Specsavers, Jace.
Yeah, I should have.
Anyway, I've sort of got off of the topic of the Goddard Inquiry, really, haven't I?
Yeah.
I'm sorry about that, but you should know me by now. I do sort of waffle on a bit, don't I? Sometimes.
I tell you what. Go into Barry George for us.
You want me to talk about Barry George?
Yeah, you were saying earlier on about Barry George that when you were talking about Michael Mansfield.
Yeah, well, Michael Mansfield, he represented Barry George at his trial when he got sent down for murdering Jill Dando, as you remember. Now, Barry George was always right. Now, right. This is another one. It's another one of my favourites. This, so prepared for another bit of waffle there. Barry George was also arrested for the murder of a young girl called Rachel Nickell on Wimbledon Common in London a couple of years before. But it wasn't just him. There was also a man called James Shackleton. Now, funnily enough, the copper that arrested Shackleton and Barry George for Rachel Nickell's murder, now, and they weren't jointly charged with anything, by the way. They didn't know nothing of each other, right? But the same copper, Hamish Campbell, also arrested Barry George and Shackleton again for the murder of Jill Dando on the front doorstep of her house in Fulham.
Mm-hmm.
Now, history put it that Barry George had murdered her, and he was sent to prison for life. I think he served 9 years. Now, it turned out that he didn't. He had nothing to do with it, and it was proven it wasn't him. And after 9 years, they released him. But strangely, they never compensated him for those 9 years.
Yeah, that's right. They wouldn't, would he? He lost the case, didn't he, when he went to court to try and claim damages? He lost the case because they said that they still believed he was guilty. He'd just been took off, let off on a technicality.
It wasn't a technicality at all. I mean, there was no proof that he was even on the street that day. There was no proof whatsoever. Whereas with James Shackleton, now that's a different story because he was there. He was the sweating man at the bus stop. Shackleton is an undertaker from Shepherd's Bush in London.
There's quite a tale there as to what is his justification for being found sweating at that bus stop across the road from where Jill Dando was murdered. If you'd like to tell us about that, Bernie.
It's almost a carry-on film, isn't it? It's almost a plot for a carry-on film, but a more sinister one. Now, James Shackleton went to Fulham on the morning that Jill Dando was murdered because he was looking for scrap wood to build coffins with. Now, while he was out searching for these twigs and branches or whatever it was he thought he was going to find lying around in Fulham Palace Road, he needed to go to the toilet. So he walked half a mile, remembering he was desperate. He walked half a mile to the park, went to go to the toilet, and he was accosted by a man who wanted to have sex with him. So he got scared and ran away. I don't know whether he had his wee on. I've got no idea, to be honest with you. But he got back to the street where Jill was murdered, and he was stood at the bus stop looking very nervous, looking very afraid and sweating. And he was identified by a few people.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when he was arrested, it turned out that he'd been arrested on 4 occasions for murder.
Ooh, that's quite a few.
Yeah, well, I've never been done for murder. I've got to be honest with you, sir. And I'm guessing you two guys haven't either. You know what I mean?
I have been arrested for murder.
You have been?
No, I'm joking.
No. Thank God for that. Thank God for that. But point I'm making is, 4 times his alibi should have been ripped to shreds, shouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But no, he was allowed to go.
Just to clarify, Bernie, I don't think you mentioned his alibi. We've mentioned his alibi so far, and I think it's really got to be mentioned because it's got to be heard to believe that they can actually put forward something so preposterous.
Especially on something that's so serious as well, it's not like he was being brought in for tampering with cars or loitering with intent or whatever. You know what I mean? It's one of the biggest murder cases in the history of this country. I would suggest. I don't know.
One of the most high profile.
Yeah. So what was his actual alibi then, please?
His reason for being there was because he was collecting scrap wood to build coffins with.
Yeah.
Well, that were like extracting teeth, that, Bernie. Andy asked you about 4 times, and you just you are on waffle mode tonight, aren't you, pal? Yeah, we're collecting wood.
Yes, that's exactly what he was doing. Scrap wood, because that's what you do when you build coffins. You don't order it in from timber merchants, or have the cabinets already made by a cabinet maker. No, no, you get twigs and branches and take them back to the shop and build your own.
Well, I've actually spent a little time around the funeral parlour, not a great deal, thankfully, and I did see that they ordered their coffins in and they arrived flat pack, and they just screw them all together when they arrive. I don't know whether that's the case with.
Exactly, but that was his alibi. That was his alibi. That was his reason for being there at the time, and it was accepted by Hamish Campbell. So again, Hamish Campbell let him go on a second murder. He was the arresting officer in 2 of those murders. Quite possibly he could have been involved in one of the other ones as well, but I've not researched the other 2 enough. You see, them 2 stand out to me. There's a speak about them a lot, and there's a reason why I'm so interested in James Shackleton, because without destroying anything that I'm trying to do at the moment, he was linked to my abuser. They both worked for the same in the same company, Mephistopheles Debt Collection Agency. Now, again, I've got to be careful what I say about my abuser, but because there's an ongoing investigation and possible prosecution at the moment, so I've got to be careful about subjudice.
Let's just steer clear of him, because we don't want to upset anything. We don't want anything to upset the apple cart, and we don't really want to sail close to that wind either, do we? Just in case. We just want to protect your position.
I'll tell you what might be an idea, Bernie. We're coming up to the end of the first hour, so we could perhaps play a tune here and regroup and be back in.
Get back on the subject.
That would be a good idea.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay, if we could have a tune, please, Tony. We'll be back in about 4 minutes. And welcome back to Raconteurs News. It's a Tuesday evening, and Jason and myself are back from our break, and we've been joined tonight by Bernie Gadd. Jason, Bernie, you back now?
Yep, I'm back. I'd just like to say, next time anybody gets pulled, there'll be a Raconteurs News T-shirt for the first person to get pulled and video themselves. And when the police ask them where they're going, they say, "I'm out looking for wood to build coffins for my funeral business."
Yeah, there's a challenge for you, everyone. I'll back.
I'm on it, mate. I'm on it.
So, Bernie, we took the break there because we didn't want to possibly mention anything which might jeopardise your upcoming court case. But I understand you've got a little bit more you'd like to talk about the Goddard Inquiry.
Yeah. Right. Well, as I said before, I mean, I've not put a lot of faith in this inquiry. I mean, I think it's heading nowhere, and so far I've been proven right. But I actually believe that the only people that are going to be prosecuted with regard to the inquiry are the small fish. I don't think any big names will see court because they'll either die, and history can corroborate this, by the way. Once the shit hits the fan, they disappear, and they don't disappear with any elaborate funerals. Not very quiet and private. Jana, Britain. Does anyone even know where they're meant to be interred? Because I've never heard nothing about it. I didn't even hear anything about their low key funerals, to be honest with you. But again, big names. And my personal feeling on it is they're either not dead, or they were taken out as opposed to natural causes. I've never known anyone died of cancer overnight like Leon Britton did.
No, from guests we've had on previously, we've certainly heard testimony that the powers that be have the ability to cause someone a fast-acting cancer. I mean, we got that from Ed Haslam with Dr. Mary's Monkey, and the there's an awful lot of research to back up what Ed's talking about in that book. And also, we heard from Barry Trower that there's various technological means they can induce death in someone from a distance without even touching them. So, yes, if they wanted someone to die very quickly, it's very easily achievable.
Yeah, and I honestly believe that Jana would have been found guilty. You know, even if it had just been the facts of a fact finding mission, I think it would have come out that he was guilty. And I think the majority of people that have even been involved in CSA or activists or anything like that, that everyone's agreed that Jana was a paedophile, no doubt in anyone's mind. You know, but again, we're never going to know because he's took it with him to the grave, isn't he? Anyway, I'm getting off the subject a bit here, right? So so Justice Goddard, right? She's a respected High Court judge, but she's from New Zealand, who, you know, let's face it, has no legal jurisdiction or power in the UK at all, right?
Mm-hmm.
And can only recommend to the Home Secretary on who say so any prosecutions, if any, will be brought.
Yeah.
So another question. Will Mrs. Rudd be prepared to bring the British government to its knees? Potentially the biggest scandal that's ever affected political stability in history. I don't think so. I don't think she'd have the arsehole to do it, to be honest with you. Right, so let's get on to some names, right, of people who I believe should be brought up in the inquiry. Yeah? Am I allowed to use names?
So long as there's no legal reason why you shouldn't do, mate.
Yeah. Everything I tell you, Andy, you know that I've researched. It's not stuff that I'm just making up or anything. Everything that I tell you here is names that people can go on to the internet and they can find these allegations themselves. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So these are the names of facilitators and offenders. Right. You've got Saville. You've got Smith. You've got Britton Haig, Jana Heath, Irving Fairbairn, Morrison, Joseph, Van Strawbenzie, Boyce and Havers, Boothby, McAlpine, Whitelaw Proctor, Thatcher Clark, Grills. The names just go on and on and on. To include more recently, you've got Blair, Straw, Boateng, Lilly, Derek Lord. I popped him in and we're talking about the Big Brother house earlier on. And, you know, he's a lot more famous than his little thing in that. I mean, Patrick Rock, the head of the GLC, Tremlett. You've got Norman Lamont, Lord Carrington, Douglas Hurd. You know, I'm not saying they're all paedophiles by any means, but a lot of them have been guilty of facilitating it by what they didn't do as opposed to what they did do. Yeah. Now the list isn't exhaustive, but they're just singular names. The point I'm making with this is that if all these people are found to be potential paedophiles or facilitators, or if they've committed a prosecutable offence, if that's the right word, can you see where we're going here? Can you see where we're going here with the amount of prosecutions? Are they going to justifiably do these? I don't think so.
No. So that list you just given, that's what you would call let's just describe it as a list of iffy people, or people that it's suspected are iffy.
Some of them have been convicted. Some of them have been convicted.
Yeah. I just don't want us to get into any areas where we're potentially libeling somebody. I know you can't libel dead people, so perhaps we could stick to them, like Leon Britton, like you were saying earlier on. There seems to have been a lot that have died. A lot of these high-profile people that have had question marks against their character by people. I think David Icke's outed a few, hasn't he? And people like that, and they've all seemed to have died recently. As soon as these allegations arise, they seem to disappear.
Yeah, it's not a very lucky coin to toss, is it?
Well, it's like McAlpine. I think that was the first one I remember. So you've had McAlpine, you've had Jana, Leon Britton. Who else?
Well, the thing is with Jana, Jana was outed by a man called Frank Beck. Now, Frank Beck was convicted of a hell of a lot of paedophile offences in the Leicestershire area at the children's homes. Yeah. Now he accused in court. He accused Jana of doing what he was being charged with. You know what I mean? But it wasn't until years later, now, for instance, like the last couple of years, that it even came out, and it should have done. I mean, he was accused by a man of committing atrocities, absolute atrocities in these children's homes, and then it's not just in Leicester; it's all over the country. There's not a council in this country that can say they haven't been tarred with this brush.
Yeah, well, on the subject of Leon Britton, we were planning tonight to have Brian Clare on with Bernie as well, but unfortunately, Brian's got some technical issues and he couldn't get on Skype tonight. But I know that in a previous interview that Brian did, he actually identified Leon Britton as the man that raped him when he was a child. So,
yeah.
That's a first-hand witness testimony we've had. But beyond that, we can't really say anything. Just that Brian confirmed that himself. The words came out of his own mouth.
I've met a lot of people in the last 3 or 4 years that have given me personally their stories, and some of these names have been brought up as their abusers. They seem to know a lot about these people, and I'm not just on about through the internet. Then there's one friend of mine. I'm not going to name who he is because I don't want to embarrass him online, and it's not my place to use his name either. But he was involved with Leo Abs, and Leo Abs was one of his abusers. You know what I'm saying? He was a Labour peer, I think, and who's McAlpine? He was another one. I mean, do you remember when we was on the last time with Rebecca?
Yeah.
And one of her friends was abused by one of the McAlpines.
Uh-huh.
So there are some big names that accusations have been made. Now, I'm a great believer there's no smoke without fire. All right, in some cases there possibly is, but for the amount of accusations that are flying around, even down to Cliff Richard. Now, Cliff Richard has been cleared to all intents and purposes. So why have all these people started accusing probably the most famous man on the planet? Why? Why would they do that? I haven't had anyone accusing me of being a paedophile.
Well, yeah, I can give you a possible reason that some people will come up with as to why anyone should make accusations such as that. And when I was discussing with my parents about what we do on the radio, and I mentioned yourself and Mickey Summers, I got a reaction. They were absolutely aghast, didn't want to hear about it. And they said, well, why didn't these people mention these things earlier? Sure, they're just in it to make a fast buck out of it. And I don't for 1 minute condone that kind of attitude myself, but that is what some people do believe.
That's a pretty slow, quick buck.
What I'm going to say to you, though, is that a lot of the people that I know, especially, they're not interested in money. I don't want no money. I don't want no compensation. I just want to see. I want revenge. That's what I want. and a lot of people who I know, they want revenge. Now whether that means that these people are going down for many years or whether they're going to get hurt is irrelevant to them. It really is. It's irrelevant to me whether my abuser died tomorrow or whether he spends the rest of his natural life behind bars. It makes no difference to me. As long as he suffers, I'm happy. I was made to suffer, and I think he should as well. But anyway, I'm getting off it again, so I'm going to get off of it again. Right, where did I finish? Where was I? I was just talking about. I was talking about the people, wasn't I? Right, but it's not just about the people, right? You've got all the local councils, children's homes, scouts, all the schools and the hospitals and stuff, and it builds a picture of how impossible the task is to actually bring everyone to justice. There's too many people.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. It's not going to be possible to prosecute every single person who's responsible. And potentially, you know, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of people here. We're not talking about a couple of hundred or a couple of thousand. We could be talking the hundreds of thousands. Honestly, 500,000 plus. We just don't know. That's how big this thing is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was warned even before I started looking into this, Bernie, by someone I've been in contact with for some time now, that when it is revealed the scale of child abuse in this country and indeed worldwide, many people just will not be able to cope with that revelation because it is so massive.
Of course they won't. No, they won't. You're absolutely right. They won't be able to cope with it. On Facebook, for instance, there's actually pro Cliff Richard sites, and he went on and he was talking about what had happened to him, and the amount of people that came on and said, even if you had been arrested and convicted, I would never have believed that you would have done a thing like that. You know what I mean? It's just unreal. It really is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Getting away from the inquiry for a second, I've got an idea which I think would work so much better, because if the inquiry is a success, it would have to go down this road anyway. And the road I believe that they should go down would be to allow the police to do their job unhindered by Official Secrets Acts and D notices and arrest suspects. Obviously, the likes of Clive Driscoll, as I told you before, he was stopped in his tracks when he started questioning VIPs. To me, the inquiry is just another hurdle to stop us from getting justice. It's been put in the way.
Mm.
Look at some of these councils. I mean, what's been introduced into schools? To young people to sexualise them. They've been introducing sex education a lot. Sex education now compared to sex education when I was younger is a totally different ball game. A totally different ball game. The difference is like comparing a Sunday League football match to the European Champions League final.
Oh yeah, we're similar age, Bernie, and I remember the sex education I received in school. It was very basic, and it was all about the mechanics of it. And
the mechanics, it was. You've hit it on the head. The kids now, they know stuff of every part of the whole act, from chatting the girl up to their emotions and everything. Too much too soon, maybe. I don't think they need to know half the stuff they know at school nowadays. I really don't. But maybe that's just me being old fashioned. I don't know. No, also, you've got the use of paedophiles in the top jobs in ensuring a steady stream of sexuality to the kids, and more worryingly, a queue of teachers more than ready to infiltrate their minds with filth.
yeah, I'd just like to jump in there, Bernie. We've got a couple of comments in the chat room I'd like to read out and would appreciate your comments on. We've got one, and it says, I know Cliff's guilty. I knew someone he abused. His thing is whipping. His friend is convinced. I knew someone he abused. His thing is whipping. This friend is convinced he would have been whipped to death if he hadn't escaped. He showed me the scars, and that was back in 1977. And there's also a comment from Mrs. Banks, who's a good friend of yours, I now understand, Bernie. And she says survivors can't cope with it either. Andy. 37 years later, still victims coming forward of the abusers of myself. It's vile to think we tried to speak out and to be silenced, and so many with that same scenario.
Yeah.
That is an ongoing problem, isn't it? And the way that abusers work, they put their victims in perpetual fear that something dreadful is going to happen to them or anyone they care about if they speak out. And also they tell them that if they speak out, I'm important, you're not, you won't be believed.
Now, the thing is, Andy, what you've just said, you've just described that me as 11 years old.
Mm-hmm.
You've just described it, how I felt, what I was told and stuff like that in my abuse. So you have hit it on the head, because me and you's not talked about this, but I'm not the only one. I mean, you're what you've just said. I actually believe that what you've just said is you could have took those words out of hundreds of thousands of victims of abuse, and you'd be telling their story. You just literally have told their story, why they've kept their mouths shut, because they're scared. And it's one of the big things that abusers use against people. Say this and you'll get this, or this will happen, or that'll happen. And it's enough when you're a child. It's the worst thing in the world. I mean, can you remember when you was a little one, if someone threatened to punch you in the mouth, God, you'd have burnt an house down to get away from them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And they use this power. This is the power that they use. And once you learn how to use that power, you're a very formidable person, especially against a child. And the children don't know. What they do is rather than say anything or to stir the pot, if you like, they'll just do nothing.
Yeah.
But these little kids, these little children all grow up, and as they grow up, they become bigger, they become stronger, but their abusers become older and they become weaker, and they they become equals, if you like. And this is why a lot of them don't come out until later on. And it might be something like with me, why I did it, why I came out in the end. You know what I mean? Because how can I advise people to go to the police if I weren't prepared to do that myself?
Exactly. And I suppose people like yourself who are speaking out publicly, and people like Brian and Mickey and Kaz and all you campaigners who are doing great work, you're obviously going to show people that there is a way forward when you do speak out, and give people the courage to report the crimes that have been perpetrated against them.
And I tell you what it is, Andy, you've hit it on the head, because I tell you what, it does take courage for that first step. But I tell you, once you've took that step, there ain't no turning back. Once you tell the right person, and you get the encouragement, and you get the support, and you get the love and the warmth, there ain't no going back.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll fight for anybody. Do you know what I'm saying?
I've seen that from the people that I've come into contact with since we've been doing this, such as yourself and the ones that I've just mentioned there. They are fearless, and I know from what they've told me that they were the same frightened little child, and for many years frightened adults before they got that courage to speak out. And I think it's important to mention there that action cures fear. If you actually do something about what you're frightened about, it kind of diminishes that fear, and the more positive results you get from the action you take, then it's going to diminish the fear more and more, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And you have got to take action at some point. You can't, if you don't, then you're going to live with that for the rest of your life. I'm a better person. I believe I'm a better person now because I came out and I told everybody about what had happened. Yeah. And and there's been times where I've been in tears. There's been, I'm a fully grown man. I'm 6'3". I'm not tiny. You know what I mean? But
Oh, he's a big old lump.
yeah, I am. You can talk. Anyway, but I've been sat in here on my own, and I've not been able to move for days. I mean, there was one night when I was talking to my mate Bernie, and I hadn't left the settee for 3 days, and I was so dehydrated, and I couldn't walk. I really couldn't walk, and I had to crawl across the frigging living room into the kitchen to make a drink.
Wow.
This is. I don't even believe I'm one of the more serious mental health cases in this. I think there's people that just cannot cope on a day-to-day basis, because of the intensity of what's happened to them, how long it was going on for, the type of the abuse they were getting. Your brain can only take so much.
Well, that's right, and my understanding that many people, after years and years of suffering this torment, can't cope any longer and take their own lives, and that is the ultimate.
Sometimes that's the only release, and I've been there, Andy. I've been there, and I did try to take my life. You know what I mean? And I ended up in the local. They don't call them asylums anymore. They call them hospitals, don't they? But I ended up there, and what I saw in there made me realise just how bad the situation is, because I actually felt like I shouldn't be there when I saw some of the people that were in there, and they were just suffering from mental illness, and it had been going on for so long that eventually, if you can compare it to a computer, for instance, if you keep putting stuff on your computer and you don't clean it or don't do an antivirus, if you don't do stuff, eventually your hard drive's going to become very sluggish, and that's what the brain does. You see, it can't cope with all the information, and if you're thinking about that information every single day, you're doubling it, you're trebling it, eventually it's going to say, well, you're having a breakdown, we're going to need to get rid of this stuff, and some people don't come back from these breakdowns. I know what it's like. Not so much to take the overdose, not so much to try to. I actually know what it's like not to want to be on this planet anymore.
Yeah,
and that's as deep as you can get. It really is, and there's so many people that do it. It's easy to commit suicide if you've got the right frame of mind. Everyone thinks you've got, it takes a big pair of balls to do it. I'm telling you, it don't. It takes a split second of madness. That's all it takes.
Yeah, well, I understand that you've been writing on your Facebook page. You're writing your I just want to move this sort of away from the dark places it's going. How therapeutic has it been for you you've been writing your book, haven't you, and publishing it on Facebook?
Yeah, I've put it out on Facebook. I haven't been doing a lot on it recently because I've been doing other stuff, but it's a work in progress. And basically, when it's finished, everything that I've been talking about tonight is going to be there. Can I put a link out? Would that be all right?
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah.
Right. It's on Facebook, and the page is called "Is This It? A Journey of Fear?" And basically, it's at the moment in 2 parts, but it's going to be in 3 parts. I've got to chapter 9 at the moment, and there's an awful lot in there. It is worth reading. Now, it don't cost anything. I don't want no money. It's there to educate people as to what has been happening, who's been doing it, because I don't hold no punches back. I'll name names, you know what I mean? The only reason I'm holding back a little bit here is because I don't want to get you guys in trouble, But I'd go to prison for it if I have to, you know what I mean? But I won't. I most definitely, when I'm writing, I'm a different person, It has been very, very, very therapeutic to me. When I'm down, I'm down. But when I write, I'm not down. I'm very up and away with it, and I feel so like a different person, so much better. Now, if anyone does want to read it, like I say, if you go on, is this it, A Journey of Fear, and it's there, and it's all its glory, and it is a bloody good. I don't care what anyone says. There's nothing like that out there. There is nothing like it out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're doing a great job. I did read some of it when you start putting it up there, and it was a great read, Bernie. I've posted the link in the chat room for anyone who's listening right now. If you just log into the chat room on raconteursnews.com, go to live chat room at the top, and I've posted a link in there, so you'll be able to click on that and read Bernie's book for yourself.
And there's also a page that me and my friend put out called Justice Needed, and it's a historical site. In fairness, we put all the stuff out there that a lot of that's going through at the moment in the inquiry. But we go back years and years and years, so it's not really up to date with your average. Is there such a thing? Average paedophile on the street. The stuff that we tend to put out there is the stuff that we're talking about tonight.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's all you can do, really, isn't it? You can speak from your own experience. It's very difficult to relate someone else's experience, particularly if there might be a 20 or 30 or 40-year age gap with that person.
Exactly. I mean, there's probably a lot of people that might be listening now that are wondering who Edward Heath is. Who knows?
Mm-hmm. And for those who are wondering, Edward Heath was the Conservative Prime Minister who took us into the common market, as it was called at the time.
Common market, yeah, that's right.
And that was in, what was it, 72 or 3?
It was 73. It was 1973, it was.
Yeah, and we were told all we were going to get there was just it was a trade agreement. And it appears that he knew full well when he signed that treaty what he was signing us into.
Yeah, well, the surprising thing about all that is that we never actually voted to join a European Union. The common market was not the European Union. It became the European Union, but, everyone should have been given that choice to stay or to leave before it became the Union. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And there was never an option offered there to us.
Maggie Thatcher would never have given you an option to do that. It was it all changed while she was in power, didn't it? Edward Heath left, Maggie Thatcher came in, and the rest was history.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a question here. Heath sent me a question. Heath, not Ted Heath. Heath, my friend. He wants to know how does Bernie think the government should address the problem of paedophilia? How do you think the government should address it?
Heath, that's a bloody good question, my friend. I honestly believe, and I'm going to get shot down again. I'm going to get shot down. I'm a great believer that it's once you've done something like that, and if it's irrefutable, if there's DNA, if they convince, definitely, I think they should bring back the death sentence. Because I don't think that paedophilia is something that you can be cured of, if you like. A lot of people would argue with me whether paedophilia is an illness, and I'm not going to get into that one because I'm not a paedophile and I don't understand how it works. But if it's a sexual preference, then wow.
Well, I've read a great deal on it, Bernie, and there's an awful lot of people suggest that all paedophiles should be castrated. But from what I've read on the psychology of what they do, castrating the paedophiles would have very little effect. And what it would actually mean was that rather than committing these sexual crimes against children, they would more likely end up torturing the children or killing them. So that's really not a way forward in itself, is it?
Right, make it easier to understand then, right? If a dog bites a child, it's getting put to sleep.
Yeah.
If a man grabs a child, abducts him, brutalizes him, murders him, he's going to get 15 years in prison.
Yeah.
Where's the justice there?
No, there is none, mate. There's
No, there isn't. And it's not just paedophilia either, because there are, and we'll call them rumours for the sake of argument. There are rumours that a lot of these children have been murdered, and it's not even rumours, because you've got the likes of Vishal Malhotra, for instance, little Asian boy. Now, half his body was found in another county. Now, he was abducted on his way home from Prince Charles's wedding. Little boy, and they found his skeletal remains in Sussex. Roston or something like that. I think it was called. Now, the man that suspected of murdering him was a man called Sidney Cook. Now, the reason he was suspected is because he was a known paedophile. He in the area where Vishal went missing, which was very, very close to the Elm Guest House, by the way, the fair was there. The same fair that Cook was working for was there. When Vishal's remains were found, it was a skull and torso, and were found in a place called Rogate, I think it was, in West Sussex in 1982. The same fair had set up shop in Rogate.
Ooh, wow, that's quite a connection.
He was never convicted of it. So what does that suggest?
Mm-hmm.
He weren't even arrested because the guy that owned the fair said that he was with him. He was with him. He couldn't have done anything. He couldn't have been doing anything, because he was with him all the time. And the word was taken. Things have got to the stage over the last 30 odd years where the police and it's not their fault, but their hands are tied. Once upon a time, if you was cheeky to a copper, you got a good hiding, simple as. I mean, I can remember them days, and then they're not old wives' tales. You did get a slap of the copper. Nowadays, coppers are scared to even intervene in things in case it comes back on them. They've got to be so careful now. The police force of old, they would have dealt with situations there and then, whereas the police force now, to be an officer, you've got to be a special caliber of person. You couldn't just, years and years ago, a constable could have gone on and become a chief inspector, whatever, gone on as far. Now, ain't gonna happen. You've got to have university qualifications and all sorts. The police, once you get past sort of inspector stage, we're talking politics. We're not talking police. We're not talking investigations. You know what I mean? And if we're talking politics, then where do these politics end? Chief constable, the chief constable's boss is the Home Secretary.
Mm-hmm.
And the Home Secretary's boss is the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
Of course, there's been another layer of bureaucracy added with the police and crime commissioners.
Yes, I think maybe the less we say about that one, the better. I don't know. Lee's raised an interesting point, and I think it's quite noteworthy. And it's something I was actually having a long conversation with one of our listeners about at the weekend, who came over to visit us. And it's about the word paedophile. Now, Lee said, I'm not a big lover of that word because phile is a lover. So an Anglophile is a lover of England. Now, paedophile would imply that that person is a lover of children. And as he says rightly, they do not love children. They destroy children's lives.
Yeah.
I think it might be useful if we started to use a more accurate word, such as pederast.
Pederast is a good word. It is a good word. Child destroyer is another good one. There's lots and lots of labels that we can put on them, but at the end of the day, they're all animals, and their only thing is that as they want to harm in one way or another, they want to harm children. That's what they want to do. It's what is it's what they live for. You know, it's not a pederast, as you say, and it is a good word. But you know, a pederast only wants to degrade. They only want to harm. That's all it's about. There's no love. He's right. Lee's right. There is no love. Well, what you know, if you love someone, then you know you want to do nice things for them. You want to make them feel safe. You know, you don't want to hurt them. You don't want to harm them. So you know, it's right. It is a bad. It shouldn't even be used in that sense.
No, and I think possibly child rapist might be a good term, because someone who rapes a child certainly doesn't intend to do well. In their twisted mind, they may think they're doing something wonderful for the child, but really that is ruining that child's start in life. And
Yeah.
as we've seen from so many people coming forward now, that blight on the start of your life lives with you throughout your life. Even though you might box it off and hide it away in a corner, it's still there, and it still affects the way that you live your life, doesn't it?
And as sure as I'm sat here talking to you now, it will rear its ugly head again. It always does.
Mm-hmm.
Which is what triggers do. You know, a song, for instance, you hear a song that you know, if you hear a song now from the old days, you can almost pretty much remember what you were doing when that song was in the chart.
Okay, we just got a song started there.
Was it a song? I thought we were being taken. I thought the mothership had arrived for us.
Well, maybe it is. I can't see
What
any
I'm
lights.
saying now, Andy, you know, you could almost place yourself where a song was, can't you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, music is very powerful for triggering memories. Another sense that I know that is very powerful for triggering memories also is the sense of smell. You smell a smell that you haven't smelt for years, and you know exactly where you smelt that. I did myself. I did what we call perhaps a strange or mystical experience. I felt like a friend of mine who died recently was in the same room with me, and I could smell him. I didn't see him, but I could smell him, and I knew damn well it was my friend's smell, because you know everyone's got their distinct smell when you get to know them quite well, don't they?
Yeah, I know that. I know what you're saying. I know exactly what you're saying. That's pretty intense, that, Andy. Wow,
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty strong stuff. That, but I know what you're saying. Yeah. There's smells now that take me back to 1972. There's a song. There's even a song that I, you know, I could never remember the time. I could never remember what part of the year it was or anything like that. You know what I mean? But what I remember, the one thing that I do remember, there was a song by Gilbert O'Sullivan called Claire.
Oh yeah, I remember it.
So I think it's fair to say that I can put a time to it because of that song.
Yeah, that was 1972, wasn't it?
That's the year I was abused. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, that's quite a memorable song. Gilbert O'Sullivan seems to have faded into obscurity, but yeah, that one sticks in my mind quite strongly.
He's gone a bit quiet.
Who's gone a bit quiet? Me?
No, Gilbert O'Sullivan.
Oh, right. Is he dead then?
I have no idea. I ain't got a clue what you're talking about. I'm younger, you know. I'm the younger generation over here.
When you say that, he's got to be in his 60s, isn't he, at least, or even later?
No, I'm in my 40s.
So am I.
He just had a big paper round, Jason.
An extremely long one. So, what have you been doing? Going to any rallies and things like that? Have you got anything planned? I noticed we've got about 15 minutes left, so we should really start talking about what's for you in future. Have you got any rallies planned? And what are your plans personally?
There's one in September in London that I'm still I'm in an hour in about going down. It's a long way for me to go on the night bus because I've got to go down there overnight, spend all day there, and get the night bus back. So it's a 3 day without sleep thing, when I go to them. So I'm on in an hour in about it at the moment. There's no pro. See, this is another thing with the Goddard Inquiry, unfortunately, Jason. It does seem to have split people down the middle a bit, and and the unity that was there not 12 months ago isn't there anymore, unfortunately. Different people gone off and done different things, or they felt pushed out by others. So there doesn't seem to be as much unity as what there was. So the invitations aren't there anymore. Do you know what I'm saying? A lot of people are doing their own thing now, which is quite it's it, it's not good, is it? You know what I mean? Because we need to be united and we need to join together. Because if we don't join together, then they're going to pick us off. They're just going to pick us off. You know, you know the. I keep going back to Mickey Summers, you know what I mean? But look what he's done in Nottingham because he's got the people behind him.
Yeah, Mickey certainly got the backing of an awful lot of people, and we've just got an update.
People believe in him. Mickey Summers is I can't speak highly enough for the guy. You know what I mean? He doesn't put himself out there as somebody. It's my thing. You know what I mean? He's there for other people. He just wants to help other people.
That's right.
He didn't put it on himself. You know what I mean? Whereas some people do. There's some people that it's their group sort of thing. It's their way or no way. I'm sorry, but that's how it is. You know what I mean? They introduce themselves on the pages, especially as CEOs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, that is a kind of worrying trend. I know from the conversations I've had with Mickey, I've often said to him, Mickey, I'm really proud of you, what you're doing. And he always says, it's not me. It's not about me.
He don't take praise very well, does he?
No, I think there's quite a lot of us. Sometimes we get a pat on the back for things we do. It happens to me sometimes. I do some things that perhaps a lot of people don't know about. But for me, it's just, well, I'm just glad I can help someone. I'm not interested in pats on the back or somebody saying, oh, how great you are or whatever. And I know from the group of people that we've got together at our end that pretty much everybody's the same. They just want to help people, and we're all trying to do it. And if somebody likes what we're doing, then great. And
that's where that's me. That's where I'm coming from, Andy. I want to help people. I want to help people to come to terms with. They are not going to be cured. Their minds are not going to be wiped clean of what happened to them. It's a horrible fault that you've got to live with it for the rest of your life. But I think any survivor of child abuse will tell you the same thing. You can learn to live with things. You can learn to cope with things, but it's always there, and it'll always be a trigger. And all and all I want to do is help people get through these things. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever I've got to do, I'll do it. I'll travel. I'll sit with someone if they just need someone to sit with them and just be there. I'll do it. If they want me to investigate stuff, if they want me to look up and find information out about certain things, I'll do that for them. It's just doing our little bit. But I really don't think that we are going to see a national justice because of any inquiry. There's been operations all over the police investigations, all sorts of things gone off over the years, and they've all amounted to absolutely nothing. Now, it ain't right, and I don't believe for one second that we're going to see mass trials. I think that's what a lot of people think is going to happen after this. They're going to see sort of Nuremberg type things, and it isn't going to happen, Andy. I don't believe it's going to happen.
No.
There's going to be some activists out there that are going to be saying, "Shut up, Bernie, you don't know what you're talking about." But I do know what I'm talking about.
Well, certainly you've lived through what you've lived through, and you've got your experience, and that's all you can really relate to, isn't it, Bernie?
That's it. That's all I can do.
Yeah. I know we've got a comment in the chat room here. Survivors don't take praise. We take pride in each other for helping the next and the next, for the voices coming together to get justice for one another. It's never about ourselves. And from all the survivors that I've met and talked to, absolutely, 100%.
That's absolutely spot on.
See, Bernie, I know you're talking about how you've got all different groups and you need to come together. The problem being is that you're dealing with people who have been scarred mentally and are going to have trust issues and things like that. There's always going to be paranoia as well, and so that's an extra hurdle that you've got to get over. For you to all to come together. Do you think it's actually possible for everybody to come together, and to sort of join forces? Do you understand what I mean? And not particularly under one umbrella, but all be pushing in the same direction.
I think it's possible, but I think just survivors isn't enough. I think the message needs to be got out there to people who haven't been touched. I think they need to look deep. And I said earlier on about no smoke without fire. There's too much for it to be coincidence. There's far too many accusations, far too many rumours. It's just not feasibly possible that it's all made up.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't think there's anybody listening that thinks that you're making anything up.
No, I'm on about me. I'm on about people that have nothing to do with it. I think they need to get off their backsides. I think they need to start researching their own stuff, because that's all we ever ask of anybody is I've said it before to you. Don't believe what I've got to. You don't have to believe what I tell you, but go and look it up. Go and research it, and you'll see that what I'm telling you is the truth. And my message it isn't to people that already believe. My message is to people that don't know or don't want to be involved in it. Is one day it could well be your children. It could well be your son, your daughter, your niece, your nephew. Nobody's abused until they're abused. So get out and research it, and then you just might see some change in this country, because if you don't, people are going to die. And if they get away with this, if this inquiry does fall on its face like I think it's going to do, you're going to see, you're going to paedophilia is going to take off as though it was something new and everyone were trying it out for the first time. I honestly believe that's what everyone's waiting for.
Mm-hmm.
And it's scary. It's really scary.
It absolutely is, Bernie. We're coming to the end of the 2 hours now, and I'd just like to thank you so much for coming on and talking with us. I know you get nervous, and you really do a good job there. And it's always a pleasure to hear from someone like yourself who is moving forward in a positive way after such horrific experiences. And that gives encouragement to other victims, or sorry, victims is not a word we should be using, it, survivors who need to come forward or need to talk to someone, and I hope that they'll do that. We ought to be drawing the line under things now. I know Tony's got a tune lined up for us to play out. I'd just like to say Thank you, Bernie. Thank you, Jason. And thank you to everyone for listening. We'll be back on Thursday night. We haven't got guests lined up as yet. We're doing a special one-off recording for an hour tomorrow night, so that'll probably go out on its own merit sometime tomorrow night. And we'll be back Thursday. No guests lined up, but I know next Tuesday we've got Max Egan coming back, and that's it's going to certainly make you think what Max has got to talk about. And then the Thursday of next week, I believe we've got Andrew Johnson lined up, haven't we, Jason?
Yes, we have. Yeah, we just got confirmation while we were on air. So, yeah, Andrew Johnson's going to be joining us next Thursday.
Okay, so I'd like to say thank you, Bernie. Thank you, Jason. Thanks to everyone for listening. And thanks, Tony, for sorting us out on the technical side when we floundered a bit there. And good night to you all.
Cheers, Andy. Cheers, Bernie.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks for having me tonight.